Michael Benjamin, former Assemblyman, New York, co-sponsor of the bill during his tenure in Albany, and he's here to say a few words in support of mixed martial arts lifting the ban in New York. Michael Benjamin. Thank you. It's a rally, right? So what's the doing? Lift the ban! 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 All right, so we're here in front of 633 3rd Avenue because this is where Governor Andrew Cuomo has his offices here in New York. The governor has not said whether or not he supports lifting the ban. We want to make sure he says something in reference to it. I served 8 years in the state assembly. It took me a while to become a fan, to recognize the necessity of lifting the ban. I recognized the sport was actually changing, had rules, it was safe, and to my amazement, mixed martial arts is much safer for the fighters than boxing is for boxers. Many New Yorkers don't understand that. They think of the old days when they had no rules, people got hurt, and had a lot of negative publicity. Today it's positive, it's covered by major media, the New York Post, the paper that I write for. Their sports section covers mixed martial art bouts like any other sport, like boxing, like basketball, like football. ESPN reports on mixed martial arts bouts. Cable TV, beginning this week, I think, of this month. UFC on Fox, on Versus, on a lot of cable channels. It's mainstream. It's part of our sporting nature. And we must tell Governor Cuomo, my former colleagues in the legislature, to lift the ban. 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 Last year I wrote an op-ed in the New York Post. I talked about John Jones, a native of Rochester, New York, who last year won the light heavyweight UFC championship, right? A New Yorker. A New Yorker, John Jones, could not and cannot defend his championship in New York State, his home state. He cannot go home to Rochester and defend his title. That's unfair. The ban prevents New Yorkers from having bouts in New York. You have to go to New Jersey. Who wants to go to New Jersey?
Nobody. Not me.
Who wants to spend New York money in New Jersey?
Not me.
Governor Cuomo says we have a huge deficit. We have to cut services. We need revenue. Revenue comes from mixed martial arts. That should be the only reason, but it's something that's helpful to New York. To upstate depressed regions like Rochester, Syracuse, which can have regular bouts, which will bring revenue to those communities. We need support lifting the ban. One more time. Lift the ban. Lift the ban. Lift the ban. What are we telling Governor Cuomo?
Lift the ban.
What are we telling the Assembly?
Lift the ban.
What are we telling the Senate?
Lift the ban.
What are we telling all of New York?
Lift the ban.
Lift the ban. God bless everyone. Thank you. All right, Michael Benjamin. Most people don't realize, at least non-fans or casual fans don't realize that the sport of mixed martial arts is a lot bigger than the UFC. Last year in New Jersey, there were 39 regulated mixed martial arts shows. Only one of them was a UFC. The other 38 were other shows, amateur and professional. There's a bigger world out there that represents this sport. And keeping this sport out of New York is preventing lots and lots of New Yorkers from making a living the way they want to make a living, or at least making it much more difficult to make a living the way they want to make a living. Somebody who represents the mixed martial arts community in New York who has to take his business across the border to New Jersey. Promoter, gym owner, coach, and good friend of mine, Mr. Steve Katz.
How you guys doing? It's a shame. Honestly, 47 states. It's unconstitutional for us not to be able to do it here. If you can do it in that many states, why can't we do it here? So that's my big thing. You know, I'm born and raised in New York. We have to do the shows across the water. It's not fair. lot of fighters that have more talent and more fans coming from New York over to New Jersey than actually in Jersey itself, even though I do handle a separate promotion in Jersey as well. We need to get it over here. We need to get it over here now. Any questions as far as the fights, the shows, the athletes, the difference between New York, New Jersey? Anything on that? Anybody have any questions about that? Okay, let me just add one more thing though. I'm sorry, question. The first legal show in Jersey was in 2000, September of 2000. And I'm not sure about the governor at that time, but Larry had the commissioner was almost removed from office in that show. We had the rules meeting for the fighters meeting, and Larry hasn't late to the meeting because the governor was going to have to remove from office for having the show put on. The IFC ran the event in Atlantic City and Tropicana. It was the first legal show in Jersey. But I was going to say, like, if you can do grappling in New York, you can do kickboxing in New York, you can do boxing, why can't you do the MMA? That's sort of the problem. Well, then I'm going to have to go to either Peter Lampersona or this gentleman here. Could answer that question better than I can. Boxing. Was boxing at one time illegal in New York? Yes. Banned off the vote.
Yes.
There we go. Jim Genia, get the book, Raw Combat. I endorse that book. Yes.
You said it was a little unfair to not have it in New York. You also think practically how to be better for local fighters and everything.
Real quick to answer that question. People talk about money for tourism and the deficit. If the deficit's so big that the MMA will not help that deficit, well, I think it will. That's one thing. $40, $50, $60 million will help pay some bills. But getting to do the bigger thing, regulation of the sport. If you have regulation to the sport, you have less fighters getting injured. If a fighter has to go to an unregulated match, he has no health insurance, he has no access to medical coverage. There's nobody there that's going to help him if he gets hurt. If he's in a sport that's regulated, then the athletic commission who oversees it will make sure that the promoters, like myself, you have to carry $20,000 and $50,000 insurance. $20,000 for access to medical and $50,000 for liability is part of our job as a promoter to have that insurance for every fighter on that card to sanction. So regulation will help the athletes to be safe.
Now, if MMA did get legalized in New York State, would you yourself consider having a promotion in one of the more depressed financial cities, you know, upstate like Syracuse, Rochester?
Well, my first thing is as close to New York as possible would be actually Manhattan, Queens, hit the boroughs, Long Island. I have people from upstate contacting me that want to do shows now. They have the Indian reservations, they're doing shows now, and the Indian reservations upstate now. Would we do that? Absolutely.
Okay,
There's a couple things I'd like to address as far as that. You know, where can money go? You know, you have Jim Miller, UFC fighter, whose son is sick, is taking funds to help athletes that have problems with their families or family or friends that have been sick or hurt that don't have the money for this. That mixed martial art money has actually helped most people already. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Longtime journalist in New York, Mr. Jim Genia, who just published Raw Combat, The Underground World of MMA, which totally chronicles the history of New York MMA. So you all have to read it. Mr. Genia.
Thank you, Steve. Hey, how's everyone doing? Good. Did you know that the UFC scheduled a press conference at the same time as this rally?
Yes.
What? Yeah, do you know why? Well, you see, the UFC donated $74,000 to Governor Cuomo's election campaign. And even though Governor Cuomo hasn't come down on MMA for or against, they're hoping that if they, quietly they handle it, he'll come down in favor of it. Well, we're New Yorkers, and we love MMA. So we're here to give Governor Cuomo a nudge in the direction of lifting the ban. So let's do it again. Lift the ban.
Lift the ban.
Lift the ban.
Lift the ban.
One more time. Lift the ban.
Lift the ban.
The ban was enacted in 1997, and it's done a great job in keeping out events like the UFC. But guess what? There's been about 70 unsanctioned underground events since that time. And since 2003, there's been almost 40 underground combat league events in New York City alone. Those folks in Albany, they want to keep mixed martial arts out of the state, it's not working. They're not keeping anything out of the state. The only thing they're doing is preventing fighters from earning a living here. They're preventing New York-based fighters from fighting here in their own state against, other New York fighters. They're forcing these fighters to go out of state to places like New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Massachusetts. Those are the only places where a fighter from New York can get paid to fight. There's no reason for that. They should be fighting here in New York. You know what we need to do for that? Lift the ban.
Lift the ban!
Lift the ban.
Lift the ban!
Lift the ban!
So far in New York, in, the last few weeks, what can you do in New York if you're an MMA fan? You can watch MMA on TV. You can train in MMA. You can go see an underground show, but you can't see a UFC. Why is that? Because there's this ban in place. A ban... Sorry, guys. There's a ban in place that doesn't really do anything but prevent these big shows from coming here, from coming to Madison Square Garden or upstate places like New York. This ban that prevents New York from getting this revenue that it could use. Places like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Massachusetts are getting a lot of revenue from having these shows. Not just UFC shows, but countless other shows. And this is revenue that could be happening here in New York, coming to New York State's coffers. So, one last time, what should we do?
Lift the ban!
One more time.
Lift the ban!
Steve, it's all yours.
All right, thanks to Jim Genia. You really want to know about the history of what went down after the ban, you got to pick up his book. It's totally awesome. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Not just saying that, it's really good. And for those of us who have been in the community for such a long time, like my first and only MMA fight was in 1997, the year that it was banned, and then I went on to kickboxing and grappling and other things. So if you read the book and you've been around that long, you're gonna read like an in-depth diary of the whole story. You're gonna read a lot about Mr. Katz over here is in the book a few times, and it's just really awesome. So I definitely advise everybody to read it. And there's a lot of good coverage about sanctioned MMA as well. I wanted to say one of the organizers that helped us put this whole rally together is veteran journalist Eddie Goldman, who unfortunately is homesick and couldn't make it here to speak today, but he sent an email and just wanted me to read something. So I'll take a few minutes to read his statement. He said, "Unfortunately, I'm under the weather today and can't attend this important rally or the film festival. By the way, at 4 p.m. we're having a free MMA documentary film festival at Madison Square Garden, so everybody should attend that. Some of us have been fighting this unjust 1997 law banning MMA and combative sports since it was passed. In the end, we will prevail. Thanks, Eddie Goldman of No Holds Barred." So what do we want to tell Governor Cuomo today?
Lift the ban!
Again, so they can hear us all the way up there. Lift the ban!
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 Whiz, but he's an awesome story too. All right, so another person who makes their living in this business, who's a New York resident, the host of Darside Radio on MMADiehards.com. Come on up, Mr. Mike Stetz.
Thank you, Steve. I'm proud to be, here on behalf of Stephen and the New York MMA Coalition. I've seen Steve go through countless hours of stress and hard work, blood, sweat, tears, just to get the message across to, really show how bad and how outdated the ridiculous laws are banning, MMA in our hometown state that we all love. I've been in New York my whole life. I cover the sport. I love the sport. I'm a fan of it, and it's ridiculous that we can't have a big event in New York State. We have over 300 gyms in New York where you can train mixed martial arts, but you can't watch one live fight. We have, so many huge venues. Not even just here in the city, Madison Square Garden. We can go all the way up to the Pepsi Arena in Albany. It's just, and it's funny because you ask people, or you talk to people about it being legal, and they look at you with their eyebrows raised. What? It's not legal? Yeah, no, it's not. I just spent the last weekend in Ohio covering Strike Force. You can have mixed martial arts in Ohio. Not to knock other states, but this is New York. This is supposed to be the epicenter. This is supposed to be where everything's cutting edge, where everything's happening, and yet we still struggle to get New York here. And the battle always continues, you know. All of us are here that in support of the movement, and it's an awesome thing, you know. It starts from the bottom, and Stephen Kepfer took his time and really put in hard work to get us all here in front of, you know, Governor Cuomo's office, who is a supporter of New York and mixed martial arts to get here, but he hasn't made a public statement, and we want him to make a public statement on it. So everybody here, if we could all get one big loud one and tell Governor Cuomo what we need to do, and that's what?
Lift the ban!
Lift the ban!
Lift the ban!
One more time, lift the ban!
Lift the ban!
Listen, we all here, and I'm really proud to be, again, I can't say it enough, to be a part of everybody here that took your time to either take the day off of work or, you know, put something else you had to do on hold just to get here to show how much you love the sport and how much it means to everybody, you know, to get the sport here in the Empire State. And can't thank everybody enough. And, you know, Stephen and fellow journalists like Jim Genia and Peter Lampisana, New York State Assemblyman Michael Benjamin. It means a lot to be part of this, and hopefully 2012 is the year that we see, you know, the fighters we love to watch. And, you know, and it's not even about the big guys. It's about, you know, guys that you don't know about who are coming up the ranks that want to show their stuff, not go, you know, into New Jersey to fight there. You know, these guys are fighters that they can't fight in their hometown, you know. They're always on the road. They don't get a hometown fight. You go look at a fight card and you see guys in New York, they always got to go. There's a bunch of fans in New Jersey rooting for their guy. They don't have anybody there. So, again, one more time, I'll turn the mic back over to Steve. What do we got to tell Governor Cuomo if he's peeking out his office or he can hear us?
Lift the ban!
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 But there's something that always really bothered me. The reason why I started writing about MMA is because I moved back to New York. I'm a Long Islander, born and raised, but I left for a little while. When I came back, there wasn't a whole lot to write about. There wasn't a whole lot of new writing jobs to get into if you decided to pick up states and go somewhere else. And when I started writing about MMA, just because I had trained a little and was a little bit of a fan, knew what I was talking about, I ran into probably the most accepting, the most laid back, and the most kind-hearted community that I've ever seen in New York mixed martial arts. I mean, you got Steve Kepfer, who was brave enough to introduce me as a friend of his. So that was one thing. And I feel that this is a community that, by virtue of this ban being upheld and being in place, is being unfairly judged. You got some of the best people around, some most accepting people around, some most kind-hearted people I've ever met in my life. And this is a statement from the government of New York State, from the governor himself in his silence, telling those people that what they do, what they put their hearts into, what they try to put their livelihoods into, is not good enough for this state of New York. And that's something that I feel cannot stand. Beyond any of the other issues and any of the other very legitimate issues that come with this ban, it's that mark against a group of people in New York, true New Yorkers, people that I've come to love really as a community, and that's a mark against them. So to that I say, for all those, just for your own personal pride, for the reason why you sweat, for the reason why you got into this sport, I say lift the ban.
Lift the ban!
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Pete. Oh, this is my friend George. We were talking last night. He came all the way up here from Alabama just for this rally, and I'll let him. This is Master Sergeant George, right? So he came up here with a whole bunch of soldiers who are at the other press conference, and hopefully we'll meet them all at the film festival later. And so I'm going to hand over the mic. He's going to say a few words on behalf of all the men and women of the armed services who came up here to fight with us today.
All right, guys. MMA, we call it military combatives. It's huge now, and it's all because of everything that's been going on in New York. They should have legalized it years ago. I'm also a pro fighter. I turned pro in December of '09, and I had to get licensed in Florida. This is the license in Florida, and I'm just going to read you what it says. It says, "Congratulations, with this license you become one of the nearly 1 million Floridians. I'm not a Floridian, I'm a New Yorker. 1 of the million Floridian licensed by the Department of Business and Professional Regulations. Our professionals and business range from architects to yacht brokers, from boxers to barbecue restaurants, and they keep Florida's economy strong. Why couldn't we keep New York strong with MMA? Lift the band.
You know what? I just found out we were called that at the UFC press conference today. They just called us hardcore fans. That's great. But what we need is not just hardcore fan name calling. We actually need Governor Cuomo to be just kind of a little bit of a fan and to say in public what he wants. What does he want to do?
Lift the ban!
That's right. Lift the ban!
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 Lift the ban!